Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of BOF Live. Today, we're here for a masterclass with one of our professors, our esteemed professors from our vast library of courses, online courses from BOF Education. We've been doing these events for the last couple of weeks now in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, which has so many of us sitting at home with extra time on our hands. And we've noticed a huge spike of interest in our online courses. So we thought, what better way to engage our new students than to bring some of our professors to answer some questions. And today, I'm super pleased to have Susanne Tide-Frater, who has taught one of our very first courses, maybe the first course.
The first one, absolutely.
It was the first one on the art and science of buying and merchandising. And when I first started working in the fashion industry, people talked to me a little bit about how merchandising and buying were really not just about taste. They were also about data and numbers. And when Susanne and I talked about this course, that really became the kind of underlying philosophy and principle that underpinned the whole course, the art and science of buying and merchandising. So it's not just about knowing what's in style and what's beautiful and what's of the moment and getting a sense, but it's also being very au fait with data and numbers and analytics. And Susanne, throughout her career, has really exemplified this balance between art and science. So before we take questions from our participants, there's already 400 people watching, Susanne. Could you just introduce yourself briefly, and for those people who aren't familiar with you, so that they can understand who you are, a bit more about your background, and then we can dive into some of the questions.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm super delighted to meet you in this way. Although I can't see all of you, I can feel you there, and it's wonderful for me to be able to give something back. Hopefully, give you some insights and share. And I've got quite an unusual profile. I won't dwell too long on it, but believe it or not, I'm an archaeologist and was always interested in how beautiful things were created and their context and how they actually came into being. And that's not very different in fashion. And I spent all my working life experiencing exactly that in various jobs as creative director of Selfridges, of Harrods, helping the brand Victoria Beckham on its feet, and then with José Neves in Farfetch. And lately I've been helping Holly and the Browns team to renew the wonderful heritage that they had been given.
Okay, well, thank you for that intro. We have such a broad range of questions that have come through from around the world, but I wanted to take the opportunity to ask the first question, which is just really to get a sense, and we're doing this with everyone that we're talking to as part of BOF Live, but just to get a sense of your thoughts right now, Susanne, on the situation that the world is in, that our industry is in, and that you personally are in as it pertains to the current context of this pandemic, which has really caused everything to be kind of paused in the fashion industry all around the world. Like, what have been your thoughts and reflections in these past few weeks since the lockdowns have happened here in Europe?
I would say mixed, like everybody else. I am absolutely delighted that we get this stop and pause button right now, because I think our system has gone to the brink, and we will talk about that a little bit further, hopefully in the next few minutes. I am horrified by what is happening to some of the smaller businesses, the people who haven't got support, and about obviously the worries that people carry. So I think this is an absolutely unprecedented moment. I don't think 2008 can compare. I don't think anything else in this lifetime can compare. And moments like this, where you actually live without a safety net produce generally fair, but also the most beautiful things. And I'm hoping, and I'm actually quite excited about new ways of doing things, because I think we cannot go back to the way we were.
Okay. Well, I agree with you, Susanne. I think this opportunity has provided us all a chance to reset and reflect. And I think it's just now, I did a really interesting chat yesterday with Sinead Burke, and we were just talking a bit about how there's really an opportunity here to create something new, like really creative things can happen during moments like these, like actually constraints and,
Yes.
you know, limits and barriers. That's sometimes what unleashes the best in creativity. So um, let's move on to some of the questions now. The first question is going to be from one of our friends in Italy, Mirko. So we're just going to wait till Mirko joins. But yeah, I mean, you know, Italy's been one of the countries that's been most impacted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's been really interesting for me to connect with some of our community members in Italy during this period, because you just get a sense of what's actually happening. It sounds like things are starting to flatten there a bit. Oh, is that Mirko? Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Mirko. How are you?
Good, good. I'm been in lockdown for 1 month, so it's been quite a long time now.
Oh, well, I'm really grateful that you've taken the time to join us today. What's your question for Susanne?
First of all, I would like to thank you for having me. And I also took the Susanne course 2 years ago, and it was really nice to have it. My question is really very generic. So how is going to be the fashion buying cycle after this pandemic? I mean, I'm working in a fashion company, so we're already cutting orders for Q4 2020, Q1 2021, but I'm really wondering how this is going to change.
Okay, I think there's short, medium, and long-term answers to this, Mirko. Firstly, very delighted to meet you here. I think the short term might, I can't answer that. I mean, we're living in the middle of that. There's cancellations, there's a cut, etc. I think already pre-corona, we had a fashion system, that's what I mentioned earlier, that was pushed absolutely to the brink. I've seen exhausted designers who worked on 8 collections per season to satisfy wholesalers. I've seen department stores who were squeezing where they could, who were discounting earlier and earlier, who didn't have margins anymore. I've seen seasons that were completely inverse, so customers in the end who could never, buy the product that they were actually needing or wanting at that particular moment. So there's something completely out of kilter. This is a shock to the system, and it's probably precipitated an evolution that would have come anyway. How does this mean, and how will we solve it? Medium long term, I think it's going to be a fantastic thing. I think we need to go back to 2 seasons or even longer, or to actually shorter product drops. Every company, every brand has to find their own modus vivendi, so to speak. There is no recipe for all. But in the short term, it will mean that companies have actually got to rethink their structures, and there's not anymore one recipe that fits all.
Okay. Okay. It's going to be tough for everybody, but we're going to pass through this time, I hope.
I'm convinced that it'll actually be for the better for the industry, that we will go into a much more sustainable era where people will look at the full cycle, where sustainability in companies and in supply chains will become extremely important, and companies will not only look at their short-term profit margin. And this is necessary. The key to all of that, Mirko, will be the consumer. And that's a big question mark, because we don't know yet, right? How the consumer will react. We don't know yet what they will want, what their desires for fashion will actually be. Will they turn away from fashion, which I doubt, but for sure they won't consume as frivolously anymore, or as regularly or predictably. So that's something to watch, and we're all consumers, and we all have friends and Instagram, etc., and we can watch and see it unfold. It's exciting.
Thank you so much for your question, Mirko. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Sarah is here. Hello, Sarah.
Yes, hi, thank you.
Is it Sarah or Sarah?
It's Sarah.
It's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
The American way.
And Sarah, where are you today?
I am calling in from Long Island, New York.
Okay, and what is the mood like in New York at the moment?
It has been, I think, challenging for everyone. We're obviously not as far along in quarantine as Italy, but there's a lot of uncertainty, for sure.
Well, our thoughts are with all of you in New York.
Thank you so much.
You have a question for Susanne?
I do, yes. And I wanted to, again, say thank you for having me and allowing the question. And I do agree very much with your last point about this being a chance for an evolution in the industry that has been coming for some time. I did want to ask your take and opinion on how do you feel that a merchandising and buying professional can pivot their experience in order to adjust to the change in the industry that will be coming after this pandemic?
Okay, I think, Sarah, I'm going to be quite specific. It's lovely to meet you, by the way. It looks like it's beautiful weather there too, which is important. Very specifically, I think buying and merchandising professionals have obviously a period of uncertainty right now. But one thing that I feel generally, which can be improved on a personal level for each and everyone, is the connection between online and offline, the relationship between the physical store and the digital. I observe that in most cases, buyers are either applying a similar recipe to both, or else come from purely physical retail or are digital buyers and merchandisers. Both actually, in my mind, have different functions. And as we don't quite know what will happen with physical stores in the future, I think it's a wonderful moment for a professional to actually explore the purpose of online buying and merchandising, what it can actually do that physical stores can't do, because obviously it has a completely different reach, it has a completely different customer base, it has a different type of visual merchandising, it needs different approaches. I think going forward, as online becomes more and more important, it's a wonderful field to explore. The second thing I wanted to tell you is it's a time where very few answers have appeared yet, because we're only just starting. We don't know how long this takes, hopefully not too long, but we don't know. You know, some aspects of this will last for a very long time. And instead of looking for answers, I believe in questions. I think it's a time where everybody on a personal level, actually, whether it's professionally or in terms of a brand vision or a personal vision, can ask questions about the future, and also professional questions. You can prepare the industry questions of the future. When things will start again, those will be very, very quickly answered. But I have always been a great believer in good questions. You had one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Stay safe.
You as well. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to Germany next. This is a real tour around the world, Susanne.
I know, it's exciting.
We have Marina who's going to join us. I mean, it's interesting about asking the right questions. I think questions are more important than ever.
Yes.
And we might not have all the answers, but at least if you're asking the right questions, you're starting to think about what the answers might be. Okay, there's Marina. Hello, Marina.
Hello, Imran. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Marina.
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, yes.
You're fine. Marina, where are you in the world today?
I'm in Düsseldorf at the moment,
Okay.
where I live.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm working at a retailer, fashion retailer here. And
Who
so
is
this
that?
week,
Can you name him?
I rather not, because
Okay.
there's not many, but so you can already imagine.
Okay.
But I rather not, because of my question, because it's a little bit work related. So at the moment, we're having a really tough time with cancellations and liability negotiations, which it's really tough at the moment. I think a lot of suppliers in the supply chain are going to suffer. I mean, we are all suffering at the moment, but I think it's going to be really tough on the suppliers. I think even the supplier base is going to be reduced. It's not just about reducing, like because the effect of reducing collections is also going to impact on that chain. So my question to you is, like, going forward in the future planning, how can we make the relationships with the suppliers a bit fairer?
Yes. I think, Marina, it's a very good question. And again, whilst the virus brought it to a head, it's something that has existed before. I think recently, more and more merchandising planning was completely focused on profit and speed, and the cycles were getting faster and faster. And as we well know, in fashion businesses, you have to meet top last year's figures, so it became faster and faster and speedier. And I would say that retailers have had a tendency to look at themselves first. And your question about how things will evolve and become fairer, in my mind, there's only one way, and that is if actually the sector starts to look not only at its own navel, so the navel gazing has to stop, but also starts to look at the full supply chain and looking at the sustainability of this chain, from raw materials to brands, smaller brands, bigger brands. Because if a store only stocks big commercial brands, they become unattractive. They're not interesting anymore. And whilst in the short term, stores will have a tendency to probably act smaller brands because the sales isn't so good, etc. They will lose interest for the customer and become less attractive. So, the chain is actually, the supply chain is extremely important. And what I would like to see, I don't know how realistic that is, I'm a little bit of a dreamer, is actually almost sector agreements, where people get around the table and discuss this, actors of the chain, and see how they can come to sustainable growth levels that can be topped from season to season. Understandably, we don't want to stay flat, etc. And where every maillon, I'm thinking in French because I'm in France right now, every little piece of the chain actually is in a win-win situation. So that would be my very idealistic vision. I don't quite know how we get to a healthy industry again without
It's like
that.
there's no regulation in it either. So
Yes.
it's a little bit of a Wild West situation that we're living in at the moment.
It is, and there's big winners, but in my mind, they're only winners seemingly, because the big winners are not necessarily the ones who bring interest or magic or anything new to the table. So I would say that's why I talk about sector agreements. I don't have any idea. Maybe Imran can be very helpful in this, but I'm throwing it out here. I would say that's the only way forward.
I mean, it's a very challenging situation, Marina, because there's no global governing body to set any global policy or regulation around how things happen. And I think the only way it can happen is if, as Susanne says, if companies and leaders sit around the table and make some real commitments. I think what's starting to happen is consumers are expecting more transparency. And with that transparency is going to have to come a level of accountability.
Yes.
And I feels like, based on what we've heard this week about some of the cancellations and millions of workers, out of work in India and in Bangladesh and in other low-cost manufacturing countries, that we still have a long way to go.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your question.
Very welcome.
So
Bye,
we're
Marina.
moving from Dusseldorf now to India,
Ooh.
where we have Sonal, who's going to ask us a question. And for those of you who've been following what's been happening in India, there's been a lockdown in India that started with very short notice by the Prime Minister. And so there was a mass exodus of people from some of the big cities, daily wage workers, including garment workers who were trying to get home. There's Sonal. Hello, Sonal.
Hi, Imran. How are you?
I'm
Hi,
very
Sonal.
well.
Hi,
Where in
Susanne.
India are you today?
I'm in New Delhi right now.
Okay, and how is I was just telling our viewers about what's been going on in India these past 10 days or so. What's the mood like there right now?
So the mood is very serious. Our government is very serious. Our Prime Minister is doing a commendable job, excellent job. He's proving out himself to be a great leader. It is a complete lockdown. Everything is shut 24/7. And I think we are the most strict country right now in the world. And I'm glad we are, because the kind of things happening in the world are very scary, and God bless us.
Okay, well, we wish you all safety and good health.
Thank
Sonal,
you.
what's your question today?
So Imran, I run a supply chain management company out of India. We work with approximately 150 factories from India and subcontinent, and definitely India and the workers they are being impacted big way, and all the factories are being impacted in a big way. Our clients, our brands are from Europe and America. So our clients definitely, they have put our shipments on hold, and some are cancelled, but some are working on innovative designs also with us. Few of our brands are working on sustainable products and sustainable fabrics. But my question to both Susanne and Imran, to you, is that why the fashion industry is not working on futuristic fashion, where we should now think about not only the sustainable environmental sustainability, but human sustainability when it comes to fashion and the fabric and the fiber and the consumer behavior post corona. What is going to be the consumer behavior? What kind of a clothing they would like to wear? I'm sure they're not going to be in a couture, but I'm sure they want to be in a safe clothing. So that's my question.
It's a very, very beautiful question, Sonal. Thank you. And you've actually given half my answer, but that's great. You know, great minds think alike. Personally, I think the whole sustainable approach for the moment almost has to be scrapped, and we have to start from scratch again. I think the sustainability fashion trend is almost dead. I think it's been used by media and companies to actually promote surface measures. And I do believe that sustainability can only work if it actually goes across the entire company and supply chain, from raw material to the HR department, and that's exactly, and to the end consumer. And you said something very beautiful about consumers wanting to change, and I thought exactly about this when I looked at your question earlier. I think sustainability, if it was continued in the current fashion system, would almost seem vulgar and absurd, because it is not profound, it is not linked to agreements to looking after each other, and it actually touches this whole fashion system we've been talking about from the beginning. So I think one of the ideas that I had is not a new idea at all, but it surprisingly has disappeared, is local. You know, we could think about local brands again. We could think about local brands with local creativity meets local manufacturing, meets local design, meets local consumers. Doesn't mean that it can't go around the world, but it could be actually something very beautiful that could be brought back with much shorter ways. Innovation in materials, like you said, the abolishment of a certain type of fast fashion that just benefits actually the bottom line of big companies, etc., and agreements and binding agreements around that. So I think your question is exactly one of those questions I mentioned for which we haven't yet got the final answer, but it needs to be asked. Yes.
But I think during this time of lockdown, we should definitely find answer to this question, because I think this will come very handy in the future of fashion industry, actually, fashion industry in large. And
absolutely, I think the key actors have to go beyond the sustainability officer who sits, in a little on a little desk and ticks the box.
No, I think in a sustainability now, safety and security of a mankind and a human being also be counted as part of sustainability, because a garment also contain that kind of a virus, so we can work on an antivirus fabrics, innovative fabrics.
Yes, and I couldn't agree more. And I think the consumer drives fashion and results in the end. And if they lose desire and trust and safety and interest, because it is a vulgar industry, as I say, nobody has won. So I think you're completely right. It has to be part of the well-being industry. We need to look at mental health and general living conditions, etc. It's all part of this much bigger picture.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susanne, and thank you, Imran, for having me here at BOF. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sonal, for joining us. Next, we are going to Elaine, who is joining us for somewhere in the United States of America. So we'll find out soon.
So we're traveling so fast, Imran.
Yeah,
it's
this is
incredible.
the BOF community. You better keep your seatbelt on. We're going to go
good grief.
across continents, up and down, around the corner. So I love these events because you really get a sense of just how global our readership is. And it's always nice to just put faces to names. Oh, there's Elaine.
Yeah, Elaine.
Hi, Elaine.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Where are you in the USA?
So I am in Dumfries, Virginia, which is about 30 minutes outside of DC.
Okay, well, we're so pleased to have you today. What's your question today, Elaine?
Thank you for having me. I wanted to take a little bit of a soft turn to maybe something slightly more optimistic, maybe. Prior to COVID, I was working on actually launching a showroom for African brands in fashion and luxury. There's such a huge space, I thought, for that market to really kind of take hold and be a part of the more global conversation. And I think in somewhat of an irony, African fashion and luxury brands are actually well positioned, I think, post-COVID, because they haven't quite yet reached the mass scale in terms of production and other elements on the supply chain. So they are still able to produce. And so I guess my question for Susan was twofold. One, around how open now do you think buyers will be to a whole new market and maybe brands that they may never have heard of before? And if so, how best do you think they would like to be contacted, or how best should these brands be introduced to them for them to be able to hopefully join the global conversation?
First of all, Elaine, really super happy to meet you there from Virginia. I've been in your place, believe it or not, on a road trip, so great. I think it's a very good question, and I chose it because it's, like you say, it has a very creative aspect and light aspect to it. I think buyers are very open to new types of brands, new approaches, new designs. So you're running in open doors. Not every buyer, of course, we're talking about buyers of online retailers like Farfetch or Browns or department stores. Now, how do you best approach them? I would say there is not one answer to that. The one thing I would say, be poignant and be original. That would be my number one advice, and be short. So these three aspects, because you have to imagine that a buying director or creative director I was will receive per day maybe 50 different approaches, and that can be emails, it can be books, it can be files on YouTube, it can be any kinds of things. And you just simply don't have the time to touch them all. I am not opposed to even objects nowadays, you know, beautifully done things sitting on your desk might actually, a book or whatever it is, a video, the tool is not important. What is important is that it represents, that it has a unique selling point, and that you identify that really clearly. So in your case, you know, what is it that you actually want to promote? Is it design philosophies? Is it particular fabrications? Is it people? Is it a communal approach? What is it? And make you know, center your creativity around that and translate that in whichever way you like, but keep it short.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
You're
Elaine.
very welcome. Take care.
Okay, so now we're going back to Italy.
Yes.
We're going to meet Fabiano.
Fabiano.
Yeah, Fabiano from Italy. He should be with us any minute.
Hi.
Oh, there, I can hear him. I can't see him. Hi, Fabiano.
Hi.
How are you?
Here I am. Okay. Should be.
Oh, there you are.
There you are.
Hi, Susanne. Hi, Imran. Hi, everyone else.
Hello.
So my question is relates to a lot of things that has been said already, but it's more focused on the role of buying and merchandising. And it's about artificial intelligence and buying and merchandising. So my question is, what's the impact that you see, that you foresee of these tools, these kind of tools, digital, artificial intelligence, machine learning, on the role of buyer merchandiser? Just to articulate a little bit better, do you believe that this contingency right now will accelerate the adoption of this kind of tools? And more on the medium term, in the future, what do you think will be the influence of this kind of tools in this you know, tricky balance and complex relationship, especially among merchandisers, I mean, art and science merchandisers and designers?
Yeah, very good question. And whilst, as Imran well knows, artificial intelligence is not exactly my specialty yet, I'm very interested in your question, because it relates actually to the subject of my course very much so. In the olden times, the merchandiser mostly was a number cruncher who would sit in an office and crunch numbers, compare spreadsheets, create relations, etc., all day long, and then present a framework to the buyer. Now, if those who have followed my course, I've already said that I think that this profession is actually evolving a lot, that the merchandiser is becoming a lot more savvy in terms of what is important for a buyer, you know, consumer trends, etc., and that actually, in some instances, the role of the buyer and the merchandiser are almost starting to merge. Now, I think that the arrival or the continued development of AI is actually going to speed up this development. And if in good hands, can be a wonderful tool to support the merchandiser. So because what it actually does, it will actually use past information very speedily and create correlations and create well, either predictions or I mean, as I said, I'm not a complete specialist here, but this can create freedom so that the new breed of buyer merchandiser will actually be able to do their job properly. And again, for those who followed the course, and for those who haven't, I talk a lot about the importance of gut in the profession of a buyer. And what I believe that artificial intelligence will never replace is exactly that gut. And I want to re-specify what I mean by that. Gut is the experience that somebody has paired with the intuition. Yeah. And so is actually something that in my mind machines will maybe in 100 years maybe never be able to learn. So in a way, I'm quite optimistic about what this tool can do, and about how it can help buyer and merchandiser to actually focus on a much more interesting, creative way of working, whilst not losing the figures. That's the important thing, you know, the data.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabiano.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Suzanne, we have 2 more quick questions that have come through that I think.
Wow. Okay.
One is from Malika, who's going to join us. Again, we're going back to India.
Yes.
And I just thought we thought her question was a really good one, so we wanted to bring her question up. So hopefully Malika will join us momentarily.
Not yet. There she is.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you, Malika?
Hi, Malika.
Good, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. What's your question for Suzanne?
Thank you. My question is, so as students, I am stuck in the middle of my master's degree for fashion management. And now, since the entire industry is on a hold, we do not really know what to expect going further, because we were expecting to get into our internships in 2 months. Now that is also stopped because, of course, there's nothing running. So companies can't offer us anything right now. But what position do you think we would be in? I mean, even after all this ends.
Oh, good grief. I wish I was the oracle, honestly, Malika. I think my medium-term vision is a very positive one. Interestingly, I have myself got a postgraduate master in fashion management from Institut Français de la Mode. I was a teacher afterwards, so I know exactly. I think the nice thing about the course you're doing is that it looks exactly at ways of improving the industry. So I think, you know, a great way of using your extra time, so to speak, is to look at the key topics we've just touched on today. Number one, the ever faster fashion cycles and the crazy fashion system, and number two, very much linked, the sustainability question. So I would advise any young professional at this time to come up with ideas, even projects. If you feel that you have ideas that are actually worth discussing and throwing out into the world, use social media. Either create a small community or create a bigger community, share it, test yourself. Because in the olden days, you know, pre-virus, I would have said anybody who wants to work in the fashion industry as a first step has to work on the shop floor, you know, somewhere. Has to be a salesperson anonymously in any kind of store, or maybe a customer service officer in an online store. That's still possible. To really understand what is going on. The traditional roles and the way roles were carved out in the industry will surely change. That is the only certainty I have, that roles will evolve, new roles will come. but use this moment almost to have like a blue sky brainstorming with yourself, with yourselves, with your community on these future questions. I think it's actually a moment that might never come again, you know. Other students might never have this moment. So use it wisely and use it well.
So yes, it's a very, very scary time, but thank you so much for having me, and thank you for giving me this answer.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malika, for your time. We have room for one last question. We're going to go to Nicole in Australia, in Adelaide, Australia.
Have we been on nearly every continent?
Nearly. I don't think we hit South America today.
No, we didn't.
We usually do hit South America. We have quite a
We
loyal
went in Africa, but we did Africa. We did these designers.
Exactly. We didn't go to Africa, but we went to Africa via Virginia. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, there's Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Hi,
Not
Nicole.
bad. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
What time is it over there?
It's 12:30 in the morning.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Thursday, yeah. But I wanted to be up and I wanted to be part of this discussion because I'm a retail assistant and I have been for over 5 years here in Australia. And it's just been a bit disheartening in the last, couple of months leading up, and, now with the virus, a lot of stores have closed. And, in Australia, there is no restriction necessarily that they have to close, but most have had to because of, financial reasons. So I'm just wondering, my question is to Susanne, do you think there's going to be a change that needs to happen in physical retail, like whether it be to encourage or to, just the general dynamic of what physical retail will be? Do you believe that this will be something different?
I think it's a very good question. Traditional retailers will disappear, and actually they've started to disappear already. The very sad demise of Barney's, which was an icon, but it tried to follow I would say, a recipe that was old. I think that type of retailer might disappear. Physical retail in itself, I think, will be thriving if the virus allows it. I can't predict the medical aspect of it, but I think the future will be a combination and a seamless combination of online, offline, even within stores. And as much as you will be able to visit boutiques via tools online or environments, they might be invented or they might actually be real reflections of real environments, you will have experiences that are digitally led in real stores. But people, in my mind, will always want, if they can, if it's possible, to have that immediate thirst quenched. I want this item, I want to buy something, I want to have a contact directly, I don't want to wait, I want to see how it's presented. So for me, it will certainly change, absolutely, but it will not disappear if it's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And
Thanks, Nicole.
And on that note, I'm afraid we've run out of time, Susanne. Time
already
goes so quickly, yeah. But we traveled the world together, and you did a brilliant job of answering the questions from our community. For those of you who are watching, Suzanne's course is one of our most popular courses on BOF education. You can see how articulate she is and how much she knows about buying and merchandising. So if you're interested in the course and you haven't taken it yet, visit businessaffashion.com. We have a special 1-month trial right now, so that those of you who are finding yourselves at home with extra time can try out BOF and all of our content, including our online courses on BOF education. So this is me from London saying goodbye to Susanne in France.
And thanks for being such a brilliant host, Imran, and thanks for all the participants, and those who have asked questions. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.